Hello, everybody. I'm here with Mr. Niraj. Niraj, how's it going?
Greetings from Northern Ireland. We had a bit of snow today, and then I went back to typical Irish weather of absolutely freezing and non-stop rain. So yeah, that's what it's been like today.
Here I am complaining about a little bit of rain in Vancouver. I'm like, wow, this is the worst. And you guys are there chilling with all the snow coming in.
Yeah, parts of the snow. It's a kind of snow that's beautiful when it falls, but
Yeah,
thankfully it's not crazy. You can't build snowmen, unfortunately. That would be
yeah,
kind of awesome. My nephews would love that.
yeah.
They live about 10 miles in the Irish countryside. They got some lovely snow today, actually.
Well, cool. Well, that's a good backdrop for us to talk about what we're going to talk about today. Niraj, I had you on here because of your expertise, obviously, in sales, and I know you have a lot of credentials, and I don't want to do you a disservice. So why don't you tell everyone who's watching this a little bit about yourself and how you got into sales?
Yeah, certainly. I got into sales the way most people got into sales. It was completely unplanned. No, nobody wakes up and says, "You know what? I'm going to work in sales today." They may do it after watching Wolf of Wall Street, but apart from that, no normal person does that. I got into sales in 1990. Oh, I'm sure my age now, 1994, because
Yeah.
I had no other qualifications. I was a field rock star. I wanted to be the first Indian Bon Jovi, and my God, did I fail at that miserably. I mean, obviously, I had hair back then and I had a six pack. But apart from that, I looked nothing. It was just terrible. I could spend a whole hour talking about that. But ultimately, sales was the only job I was qualified for because I had no qualifications. And I spent 23 years working from classified sales to the magazine world, to the digital world, to conferences and exhibitions. In the last 8 years, while I worked for other corporations, I was a coach, a selling coach. So I spent half my day selling, half my day coaching staff. And my real happiness came from coaching others, especially seeing people who were struggling with sales and being able to help them go from here up to here. And that's one of the greatest feelings you will ever get in work because you can see your work live. You can see people, you can see the difference you make to people's lives. Because in sales, you can do that with commission. You can just go to a next level very quickly. And after a few years, your career will just change. And I love doing that. And having traveled the world for 5 years, Yasir, and realizing most people couldn't sell, I wrote a book called Everybody Works in Sales.
Yeah.
And, I was smart. I got a book coach to work with me on it to make sure I really sold it well. And luckily, it spent 21 weeks in the bestsellers list. So that gave me the confidence to set my own business up. And
Mhm.
despite all the knowledge I had, the first 18 months, I stunk. I was so bad because I was trying to do my job and run a business at the same time. So I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to fail, to charge too little, to have a bad mindset, to really, the first 18 months were brutal. But now I've gone
Yeah.
through that, I can look back thinking, oh, I should have done that. I should have done that. And now I'm in a great position in my business where I can talk about this very easily and very openly and give people advice so they don't make the same mistakes I made.
Yeah, and so many mistakes that we could list down on this one live stream alone, right? We'll touch on a few of them. I think you touched on something really good in there. That's the title of your book as well, if I'm not mistaken. Everyone works in sales.
Everybody works in sales, correct?
Because regularly we have people who come up and say, I don't like selling. I'm not a salesperson, right? I've got my own business, I've got my own service, but I'm not a good salesperson. Is this the right mindset to have if you have your own business?
Oh God, no. I mean, don't get me wrong. A lot of people say that because they're introvert, and
Mhm.
that's absolutely fine. A lot of people believe you have to be loud and be an extrovert to do well in selling, and you actually don't. When I look at my clients, 60% of them are extroverts, but 40% are introverts. So introverts can still be good at selling. But if you go around saying, I don't want to work in sales, or I'm the CEO or the business owner, I shouldn't be selling, you're going to get into real financial trouble very quickly if you don't change that mindset and if you don't change that attitude.
Yeah, and when we talk about especially new business owners, right, new service providers, when we had a question the other day as well about this exact question, oftentimes people feel a mix of imposter syndrome where I'm just getting started, I'm not good enough, I'm not as good as these other people, and that leads to them charging less than they want to charge, right? How do they overcome that initial barrier of not only convincing the client but convincing themselves to charge their worth?
Well, what you have to do is you really have to understand the sales process. Because what a lot of people do in businesses, they rush really quickly into what they do. So if somebody says, what do you charge? It shocks me the number of business owners go, well, here's my price.
Mhm.
And why would you charge a price when you haven't talked through what you can offer anybody? I've made that mistake as well. And
Yep.
I've lost pretty much every deal I've done that way. You quote price at the beginning, you're screwed. You gotta talk value, but more importantly, you have to ask questions. And that's something people are really quite shy about. Asking great questions. So where are you right now? Where do you want your business to be? What are the three biggest challenges you're facing? And just listen and stop talking. The problem is, I know this kind of sounds ironic. I'm not trying to be ironic, but the problem with new businesses, especially, is that they try and sell straight away. And
Yeah.
that's a big mistake. Selling isn't about being slick. Selling is not about 10 ways to close a deal. Selling is about helping your customer solve a problem. And it
Mhm.
always amazes me how many people don't get this. I mean, today is the first day on LinkedIn in probably 5 days. People have been very active again. Still a lot of people on holiday, and I've received 11 spammy messages. That's just LinkedIn. That's not even the ones I got in emails today. And
Yeah.
these are people with job titles of MD, of CEO. I expect better than that. I mean, literally, it's taking up my entire LinkedIn
Yeah.
inbox just with ridiculous. And I'm like, come on, guys, raise your standards. Learn to sell. They will get 3 years on a degree, but they won't think of spending a few days learning about sales, which I find mind-boggling.
Yes. So you're saying that starting a relationship with a sales pitch is not effective?
Oh God, no. Uh, if you want to, really, you wouldn't think that, but it really isn't. So ask questions, listen to what the person has to say. Now, people ask, well, how do I know my worth? How do I charge my rates? Well, once you've listened, that's when you give value. So you find out the problem the client has. You've listened very carefully. You share your knowledge and insight that will help them. And then you share testimonials of people either in a similar industry or a similar size of that business where you've got results from before. And all these things help build up your credibility and trust. You should have a good social media profile. It doesn't matter if you have 3,000 followers or 10,000 followers. Really, it doesn't. What people look at me and think, you got 6,000 followers. Well done. Bravo. I'm going to work with you. No one's ever said that to me. What they say is, I love the content of your posts. I
Mm.
love the fact that 5 days a week, you'll do 3 sales posts that give massive value, 1 sales post, which I often talk about a personal story or
Yeah.
vulnerability, and then 1 sales post where I share my clients' content, like their content, comment on it, or maybe do a charity post. But ultimately, it's mixed, it's varied, and it's giving good value. So that's why I charge what I charge, because I listen, I ask questions, I give testimonials,
Mhm.
I share consistent value 5 days a week on LinkedIn. Consistently good is way more important than doing a really great post now and again because consistency is what matters. It's the compound effect.
Yeah, and just to branch off in a couple of questions based on what you said here, I feel like with a lot of business owners that I've talked to, a lot of coaches that I work with, right? They say that I'm asking all the right questions. I'm asking them about their need. I'm asking about this, but they don't have money to afford my service. The other issue is that a lot of these people were starting out, they don't have any testimonials because they're just starting out. And I feel like because of these things, they assume other people can't afford their service before they even ask them, and the second thing is because they don't have a track record of clients they're working with, both of them combined result in them undercharging for their services.
Yeah.
How could they overcome that belief? What do you think they should do?
Okay. So if you're starting out and you're not going to have any clients, what you do is really simple. You go help a couple of local charities. You help them because they always appreciate good services.
Mhm.
If you look at my LinkedIn profile, I've got about 40 odd, say not 40 odd I've got 40 testimonials, quite a few from charities. Because it's good to help them out just for your karma and soul anyway. But also they need the help. And if you really give them good value for nothing, I don't charge them a penny. Many of them give you testimonials anyway. What you should also do is find businesses in your area and say, look, I'm not sure if we're going to be a right fit. Don't go in there saying, I can do this, I can do that. You sound like a jackass. Go in there saying, look, I'm not sure we're a right fit, but here's what I do. Here's some of the things I believe I can help you with. I'm not going to charge you for your service, but if I do a great job, I would like to have a testimonial on LinkedIn or a
Mhm.
testimonial by email. But testimonial by LinkedIn is better, or by Facebook, depending obviously on what platform you work on. And that is, again, an okay thing to do at the very beginning. You shouldn't be working for free all the time, ever, but at the beginning, sometimes you got to do these things. So that will build your credibility massively. And once people see you as a person of value, the more valuable they see you, and that's the important thing, yes, here. It's not what you say, it's how a customer perceives what you say. It's two very different things.
Mhm.
Depending how much value a customer gets from you, depends how much you can charge. So I'll give you a good example. Before I do business with a client, I am liking and commenting on their posts on LinkedIn. I'm often sharing their posts. And when I connect with them, I say, just to let you know, I've liked and shared your post, or I've liked and commented on your post. I think they're brilliant. Thank you. I don't say, hi, I'm a sales trainer. I can teach you LinkedIn training. I can teach you listing skills. No, I go in with value first, always. That's what you should be doing. Okay. And even when I do that, I don't sell them the second time. I'll often say, here's a LinkedIn video I shot. It's getting great traction on LinkedIn. Just in case you missed it, I thought you would benefit from it. But of course, I will have researched them on LinkedIn already. And if they have 4 or 5 employees, I'll say it's something you and your team can benefit from. So again, I'm
Mhm.
giving value. That means the third or fourth time I contact them, I have a right to try and sell to them. And people don't think that way. They just go in for the kill at the
Yeah.
beginning, and that's just the wrong process.
I've seen that or the exact opposite where they just never ask. They never make the ask. Right? I've had people that I work with who run through several calls with their clients and they never talk about money. And I understand that, money is a very intimidating thing for people, especially when they're starting out. So suppose you're someone who's gotten out there and you work with charities and you have some testimonials, but you haven't worked with actual paying clients yet. And I think this is where a lot of people struggle because they're like, now this person's paying me. I have to deliver the service. Maybe if I charge less, there's less leverage, there's less on me to deliver. What do you think some of the reasons are why, despite these things, people still charge less than what they're worth?
Okay. First of all, cheaper is not always better. I made the mistake when I started out. I thought I'll be really cheap. My competitors are charging this much. I'll charge less because people are bound to hire me. And yes, you will win clients, but they will be pain in the neck clients. They will drive you mad and they won't work with you long term. They will only work with you when you have a cheaper, a special offer on. And it's understandable at the beginning, you want to get the revenue in, but you've got to be thinking long term. Okay. The second thing is you got to change your mindset and your attitude towards sales, and you got to change your attitude and your mindset towards money. So instead of thinking, oh God, I have to do sales, I hate it so much, what you should be thinking is, I'm not selling, I'm not cold calling, I'm helping a business out with their needs. That's how I look at what I do. I
Mhm.
never look at it as, oh God, I have to sell my wares here. I got to, yes, I'm experienced enough now to know I have an obligation to help people, but ultimately it's helping people. I never sit there going, yes, okay, I got enough money for lattes every day next month. I can
Yeah.
give money to my daughter at university. I don't think like that. I'm thinking, how can I help this client get the best result possible? Because by doing that, they will continue working with me.
Yeah.
And if they run out of budget, then they might recommend me to a friend of theirs or a colleague of theirs or their client. So you've got to be thinking that way. That's the attitude shift in sales. In mindset, it's a bit different and a bit more complicated. You really have to change your mindset towards money. And I know this sounds really simple, but if you have a negative attitude towards money and you're constantly panicking about it, every mindset coach and every mindset expert will tell you you're not going to get very far. But if you've got a really positive attitude towards money and you're a positive person, you're more likely to charge more. I know that's a very simplistic explanation, but
Yeah.
it's a very real explanation.
And I love how you talked about the kind of pricing you have for your services determines the kind of people you work with as well. Because I've noticed when I'm working with a $200 client as opposed to a $2,000 client, worlds apart. And oftentimes I've noticed the higher paying client tends to want less out of you and they do a lot of that process themselves as well. So I'm wondering here, suppose, and this is just in my experience, when I talk to people, they think that there's a logical reason why they shouldn't be charging more. Oftentimes, this is because I don't have as much experience as ABC person who has 10,000 followers or whatever. I'm just starting my business, so I should start very low. And oftentimes, what ends up happening is they work with clients that they don't really want to work with. And this
Yes.
results in bad results for the clients, bad experiences for them, and then they don't get that boost they need to then charge higher. How can they overcome that vicious cycle?
Okay. First, we'll understand that whenever you charge less and give big discounts, it doesn't make work very enjoyable. And you begin to dislike your job. And then you start thinking, did I make a mistake by leaving my company and setting up my own? You don't want that. So,
Yeah.
what you really got to do is, like I said earlier, when you're giving massive value to companies, when you're sharing brilliant content on LinkedIn, you start to build a more engaged following. People, likes are nice, but ultimately you care about comments. And
Mm.
when people start commenting on your posts, it is fantastic for your confidence and self-worth. It just is. I mean, today I did a post and I got 40 comments. And a lot of those are people I know. A lot of them are people I haven't spoken to for a while. And it was just lovely to hear from. But it's great because I'm engaging with them. I'm talking to them. Then I'll take it privately and talk to them privately. And it's a fantastic way to do business. And that is absolutely key. But a lot of it is your confidence and your mindset. So I recommend every coach needs to have a vision board. That is, no, there's certain things in business that are non-negotiable, Yasir. One of those is you got to have a vision board. And a vision board needs to be a lot of the great successes you've had in your life till now. Again, visual images, because as human beings, we're very quick to criticize ourselves for mistakes we make, but we're very slow to remember a lot of the good things we did in life. So it's
Yeah.
important to, it's like when I coach people, I do call coaching. I don't say, what went wrong? I say, okay, what did you do well? And then how can you improve? That is very different than most bosses who, when they work with their staff, go, okay, you did this wrong, you did this wrong.
Yeah.
That's not how you work with people, okay? So you got to start from a place of positivity. So think of all the things that you've done well in life, and then think of all the things you want in life. And they shouldn't just be materialistic things like a nice house and a nice car. They should
Yeah.
be a partner, a dog, children, good health for my family, good health for myself. They should be non-materialistic as well. Every single evening before bed, you should have a gratitude journal you write in and write down 5 things you're grateful for, even if you've had a terrible day. And those days are actually more important. Five things you're grateful for. So it can be as simple as I'm grateful to have a roof over my head. I'm grateful for 3 meals a day. I'm grateful I can afford every day to go to my local coffee shop and get a fresh cup of coffee. I'm grateful I have a car to do that. And I'm grateful I can pick up my nephews from school every single day. I'm dropping off my sister. So there you go. 5 simple things. Obviously, there's more than that, but that's what I do. And every morning I wake up, I look at my 5 things again. I look at my vision board again. My confidence is always very high because my mindset is very different to other people's. So have a vision board, have a gratitude journal, and help other people. So I go to networking events twice a week. They're online now, of course. But every networking event I go to, I don't do what most people do is, hi, what do you do for a living? Stop
Yeah.
asking.
Here's my
You know,
card.
stop it. Just stop doing that. It's not effective. Hey, what brought you here today? That's a better question. But also, who do you want to meet? And who can I introduce you to? And when I do that, I don't say, can you help me now? I never say that. You've got to come from a place of service and a place of value to other people. And when you do that, people are grateful. It's great for your confidence. It's great for your mindset. And it's not just one thing. It's the compound effect. It's all these little things. They make a massive difference over time. They really do.
Just having a routine, right? That just makes a tremendous, tremendous difference. I remember when I was in my sales job, we were doing door to door sales. Having a vision board was mandatory. You needed to have one. You needed to know why you're doing what you're doing. So, in retrospect, if someone's watching this right now and they say, "Well, I've got a vision board, I've got these things," and right now, let's suppose, for example, they're charging $1,000 for their service, right? And if you ask them, okay, in a perfect world, how much do you think you should be charging? And they'll say, well, 3,000. Okay. What can they start doing right now to bridge that gap?
Okay. It comes down to adding more value. So I launched my sales course today. Now, bear in mind, loads of sales trainers have sales courses. And there's a lot of people charging courses out there, 200, 300, 400 pounds. Canadian dollars, that's about 300, 500, 600 Canadian dollars, say. Mine is 3 times that. I'm charging 1,700 Canadian dollars or 1,500, 2,500 Canadian dollars I'm charging, which is equal to about $2,100 American dollars or £1,500. That's way more expensive than most people.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing that? Well, I'm doing it partly because I'm not just doing a course. I'm building so much value. You have email coaching, you have one-to-one coaching, you have interviews with experts I brought on board who are giving you. So I've built my value so high that it's worth it. But the second thing is I have the confidence. I got 2 best-selling books. I have all these years in coaching. I have an amazing network of people I speak to. That kind of gives me the confidence. I got a vision board. I have my gratitude journals. I actually brought this up earlier for people to look at,
Mm-hmm.
because when I do coaching with people whose mindsets need improving, what do you see here? And the negative ones always say a half empty glass of water.
Yeah.
And the really positive ones always say a half full glass of water. It's a really simple thing to show people. And it's amazing. But I always look at the glass half full, always. So it's got to do with value you offer people. Look at what the competition are doing and say, how can I do better? Not how can I beat them? How can I do better? And again, how do I offer more value? I'm offering way more value than my competitors, way more. Therefore, I can charge more. But the second reason is based on what I've accomplished in my career, not just my coaching. My business is only 3 years old, bear in mind. It's very young. So I'm only 3 years old, my business, and yet I'm charging what people who've been in business 20 to 30 years charge. And that's got to do with my own self-worth and belief in myself.
Yeah, and I think every single business owner needs to have that part of their life taken care of before they hit the streets, before they start talking to clients. And sometimes it comes from experience itself. At least for me, when I started, I was exactly on that same path. Like, let me charge as little as possible so I get as many people. And then you get people you don't really want to work with. They're not getting the kind of results they're getting because they haven't put in that much to invest in their transformation, right? I want to switch gears a little bit to go from mindset to actual strategy and tactics when you're actually talking to clients, right? One of the biggest things, and I know you've probably heard this a million times, is people say, well, I spoke to the client, I told them the price, and they said they don't have money or they want to think about it and all of that stuff. Do we always take at face value what the client says to us when we present them with the price?
Mm, when a client says it's too expensive, sometimes they genuinely believe that. But that is often because you haven't necessarily given the value properly to the client. So again, it's not what you say, it's how the client perceives it. And a big mistake that young business owners make and coaches make when this happens is they start talking themselves out of a deal. So they start saying, but I can do this, I can do this, and I can do this. Just stop it. When that happens, you really got to slow down and you got to just take it back a step. And again, this is all part of business process, it's part of negotiation, it's part of sales. You don't talk your way out of a deal. If they say, I don't have the budget, you say, okay, I understand. Before we go any further, before we discuss price, because price is very important, I just want to understand, these are your needs, yes? These 3 needs you've mentioned, fantastic. And these solutions I've mentioned, do they make sense? Okay, fantastic. So you're kind of going back onto yourself again. Okay. And is there anything else I might have missed at all? Okay. So you say you have no budget. I often get that you're too expensive, and you're going to get that a lot as well. So if they say you're too expensive, you've got to ask, okay, compared to whom? And they'll often tell you. And you say, okay, so this person will offer this, but I'm offering this. That's why. And so that's a much easier discussion to have. If somebody says, look, I have no money, you don't want to be spending months chasing somebody and having lots of conversations with somebody only to discover they have no money. So what I always do is I always make sure in the first phone call or the first discussion that we have talked about money. I never start off saying, before we start this conversation, do you have budget? That's not a great way of doing business. So don't do that, but you got to ask the questions. You got to, and even the client, even the person doesn't become your client, it's okay because you'll have improved your listing skills. You'll have improved how you sell yourself. And all these things are very important because you got to get 1% better every single day. But I always ask in the first conversation, having gone through their needs and my solutions, I mention the price. And then as soon as I do that, you got to stay quiet. Don't talk for at least 5 to 10 seconds. Most young business owners say, here's the price. After 1 second, they can't bear the silence and they
Yeah.
talk themselves out of a deal. You mentioned earlier, some people talk and don't get to the deal. Some people talk themselves out of a deal. You've got to stop doing that as well.
And it's interesting you mentioned that because I feel when people drop the price, emotionally there's such a almost like a burden, like, oh my God, I'm gonna give away this number that I've had in mind, right, the entire time. And they get so nervous around throwing that number out there that they feel like they need to justify it after mentioning it. So my price is $1,000, and remember, you get this and you get that and you get this. And by the time you're done cushioning the impact of your price, you've done so much to show how eager you are, and oftentimes that backs you out of the sale, right? So, what would be an effective way to transition from talking about their challenges to going into pricing? What does the language look like?
Well, what I do is before I discuss price, I always recap what the client has said. That is so important because most people don't listen when it comes to selling. They just don't. They're trying to sell their product. That's how most people work, sadly, their product or their service are trying to sell it. So I always recap so the client knows I have listened very carefully to everything they've said. Then I say, is there anything else I may have missed? Which is a very important question to ask. And again, most people don't ask that question. Is there anything else I may have missed? They'll often say yes or no. If they say yes, I'll ask what it is. If they say no, I say great. And the last question is, from my experience when I do business, quite often, depending on the size of the company, there's more than one person involved in the decision-making process. Who else do we have to influence or get involved? And that is so important. Not, are you the decision maker? Because people say yes. They always say yes because they don't want you bothering their colleagues. But quite often, there are more than one person involved in the decision. The bigger the company, the more decision makers. You have to ask that question. And most people don't. They think if I speak to one person and I get on well with them, it's okay. It really isn't. And rather than saying, are you a decision maker? Yes, sir, it's much better to ask or say, from my experience, this makes you sound experienced. I know that there's often a few people involved in the decision-making process. Who else do we have to influence? Not who else can I speak to?
Hmm.
Who else do we? It's a very different approach. It's a very subtle, more softer language to use in business. It doesn't make people defensive when you say things like that. And you're more likely to get an answer as to who else is involved. Never, ever let the other person say, oh, I'll sell it internally for you. Never, because
Yeah.
nobody has your passion or
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah, and they'll probably do a poor job of doing that. And then I remember, one of my sales coaches taught me that he said, "Well, you're going to spend an hour talking to someone. You're going to tell them about the price, the program, how great it is. And you can say, hey, my program is 3,000, 5,000, whatever. And then as soon as you hang up the call, they're going to go to their spouse or their loved one or whatever. Hey, I talked to this guy. It's 5,000. 5,000? That's too much money. And that's it. Sales done. Your entire sales pitch is right out the window, right? And I think a lot of people don't recognize that they run through the whole hour without properly qualifying the prospect they're talking to, and only then to realize right at the finish line that, oh, this person doesn't actually make those decisions. Now,
Exactly.
suppose you are talking to someone who is a decision maker. Okay, let's go into what happens after you talk about the price. So you dropped your price and you stop talking. One of the most common things you have is, I want to think about it. Yeah, 3,000, 5,000. I want to think about it. What does that mean, and how do you approach that?
What that often means is the person isn't quite convinced yet, or quite often they're making a decision for the first time to do coaching with you. So they just need to check you out a bit more. Quite often it means they've had a bad previous experience with another coach, and then we just want to double check you're okay. And that's completely understandable. But the worst thing you can do is go, yeah, of course. How much time do you need? And I go, three
Which is
weeks.
what
Sure.
everyone
I will
does.
call you in 3 weeks. No. I'm not saying you should close the person on the first call, because most deals you won't close on the first call. You just don't. Nobody really has that high success rate. So what I'll often say to the client is, and just be straightforward with them, say, look, whenever I speak to clients, potential clients like yourself, and they tell me they need to think about it, it often means there's something I haven't explained clearly, or sometimes means they just don't have the budget and they're too polite to tell me. Can I ask, is it one of those? And that's a great sort of way to phrase things. Because the first one is you're taking responsibility yourself, saying, maybe I haven't explained things clearly. And the second thing you've done is you brought up the price question, which a lot of people don't like to talk about.
Yeah.
Quite often, price is a major issue, but people don't want to discuss it. And some people find it very difficult saying no. They'd rather be polite, not hurt my feelings. And again, that's okay. Is it one of those two? And quite often they'll say, look, I've just spoken to you for the first time. I don't know you well enough, in which case, fine, I have to give more value. Or if it's regarding price, I'll say, cool. Well, what is it about the price that concerns you? Just so I have an understanding. And again, you're asking questions. And if the person says, look, I need a week to think about it. I'm the decision maker. And I've kind of recapped and said, is there anything else? Any other concerns? I'll say, okay, here's what we'll do. If this is really important to you, I just want to ask one question. Why are you waiting 3 weeks for? Because you've told me this is really urgent to you, but you want to wait 3 weeks. That doesn't tell me it's an urgent priority for you. And that way you're almost getting rid of them very quickly or getting a better commitment. And if they say, just call me in 3 weeks' time, you've got to put a time in the diary to meet up with them. The 3 weeks sets off alarm bells in my head. If they move it forward to 1 week, that's better. And so what I say is, okay, I'm going to send you a proposal, just going over everything we've talked about with your needs, because sometimes people need to be reminded about stuff a few times. You know, you see something the first time in an advert, you don't always buy it. You got to see it several times. So you put the proposal to them, email it to them with recommendations. You put a time in the diary to speak again. You send them a diary invite in a week's time. That's absolutely vital. But before you speak to that person, this is really key. I did this very recently with a client I won. Before you speak to the client, I send them some more content in between. Here's an article I did today. People loved it. They really connected with it. I thought you'd like it. Or I was just doing some research in our industry. I came across this article written by somebody else in Forbes. I just wanted to share it with you. Again, before I've even spoken to them next, I'm giving tons of value. I'm showing I care about their business. I'm giving value. And then when I call a client up, as we've agreed, I never say, have you made a decision? Because that's the worst thing. Hi, how are you? How was your weekend? Fantastic, brilliant. Have you made a decision? No. I'll call a client up and say, last time we spoke, here were your needs. Here were my solutions. I know from my experiences working with businesses like yourselves, things change very quickly. Is this still the same? Or has anything changed since we last spoke? It makes you sound professional. You're recapping their needs. You're reminding them. You're being a professional. Fantastic. And here's what I talked about. Fantastic. So are we ready to go ahead? How do you feel about this? Sorry. How do you feel about this is what I normally ask. Not what do you think? How do you feel about this? Because the word feel is very much more emotional, and you often get a better reaction than what do you think? And then once they say, I feel really good about this, I say, fantastic, listen, I cannot wait to start working with you. You know, I really can't. You know, what dates in your diary are kind of look good for you going forward for us? You know, it's almost conversational.
Yeah.
Rather than, are you ready? Please, sir, may I have some more? A lot of people, when they do business, they put the client up here.
Yeah.
And you're down here. And that's not the way business is. Business is for me, is this equal? Yeah, this is equal. Business for me is me helping the client, giving value to the client paying me. It's an equal partnership. And the minute you put the client up here and yourself way down here,
yeah,
you've got a serious problem. They will take advantage of you a lot of the time. Not all the time, because you can't say all clients are bad. That's not fair. But a lot of them will take advantage of you.
Yeah, and I think based on what you're saying is, first of all, you identify the real objection. Oftentimes, we don't do that, and we just tackle head on what they said. So, for example, if someone says, I think that's really expensive, immediately, innately, what people will do is start justifying why the price is worth it. Oh, it's expensive, but then you get A, B, C, like you said, to start convincing the other person. Whereas what you're saying is you're actually asking them what they mean by that, and compared to what? What's the context of what you're saying? And I think the book Socratic Selling talks about this is, as long as there's something that's open to multiple interpretations, it is not the true objection. So if I say it's too expensive, is it too expensive now? Is it too expensive for this service? Is it too expensive compared to someone else? The true objection hasn't been raised, which I love. One other thing I wanted to talk about, you talked about the sales process, right? A lot of people get on a call with a client and they've never spoken to this client before. It's a prospective client, and they try to sell everybody on the first call they get on, right? So in your experience, now suppose you're selling coaching services anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. Should you have a process in place that almost voluntarily breaks that process down into maybe one discovery call, one sales call, or should you kind of gauge how they're responding and then ask questions accordingly? What do you think the sales process should look like?
Well, the sales process for me is there's two parts, but there's the strict part, which is you must ask questions at the beginning, you must listen, you must then share value, you must recap. These are kind of the basic, almost like non-negotiables you have to go through. Okay, and then you give value, and there's a kind of a process you go through, and that's what that is. But then there's also things that may happen when I'm speaking to clients, and if they're really excited and they want more, I'll often think maybe I can upsell them to a year program instead of 3 months. Or if I'm speaking to a client about a year program and they're bringing up price a lot, I will address that very early. So I'll kind of go off script and say, you've mentioned the price a few times, now you want a really good deal. What does that mean to you? Don't go around saying things, look, cheaper is not better, mate. That doesn't, again, ask questions. You mentioned this quite a few times, and this is why listening is so important. You keep talking about the price. Can I ask why? Just, can I ask why? I'll say, I like a good deal. Okay. And what to you is a good deal? Getting a good price. Not fantastic. Price is really important, but surely you've got these three burning needs. Isn't it more important you address those? And that's when you understand. And there's been times I've spoken to a client in the first call and said, look, you've talked about price, you've talked about discounting so much. I actually think you're better off speaking to one of my competitors who charges much cheaper than me. They won't be very good necessarily, and you won't get the value I'll give you, but you'll get your cheap deal, and that'll make you happy. And that's not reverse psychology. Some people think it is, but I'll often do that because I don't want to speak to somebody who hasn't got the budget to work with me. It's a waste of their time and my time. But every now and again I do that. A client will go, actually, hang on a second. No. Because people always will try things. They will try and get a discount off you, even if they don't want a discount, just to see how you react. This is something my first coach told me. They goes, Niraj, a client will want a discount. They won't want a discount, but they'll give the impression they will, just to see how you react. I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, well, they want to see, do you get flustered? Do you talk too much? Does your voice go up a semi-octave? Do you start doing all the bad things terrible cliched salespeople do? And I thought, I never thought about that before. And so now I do the same thing. When someone sells anything to me, even if they give me great value, it's too expensive. What discount can you give me? And I don't care about the discount. If I want to buy something, I really don't care about a discount. What I care about is how you're going to deal with this objection. Because if you can't deal with this objection, I am not going to work with you. If you get flustered by something simple as price, how are you going to deal with other problems I have in the future?
And that's such an important thing to be comfortable with, because the moment that someone talks about price and you can see the seller getting uncomfortable talking about it, you can tell they haven't done this before. And oftentimes what I'll do is I'll break down the sales calls for coaches that I work with, right? And they'll show me the part where they're talking about sales, and it's a lot of cushioning before the price, a very timid way to talk about price, and then more cushioning after that, and then waiting. And oftentimes what they'll get is, I'll talk to my wife and I'll let you know, or I'll think about it. Or what I've also seen happen is there's this sudden shift in the dynamic of the call. Whereas at the start of the call, the seller is in control, right? They're asking all these smart questions. The moment they talk about price and it goes into the, I want to think about it, whatever, it becomes this back and forth battle where the client's like, okay, but what about this? And then the seller answers that. Okay, well, what about that? What about this? What about that? And all of a sudden, the seller's on this defensive mode. They're justifying why they're charging. And rarely have I seen that actually work out. So I'm wondering, in your experience, when it gets to that point, when you've talked about price, you put the price out there, and they're asking you questions, how do you still stay in control of the conversation without letting them run the show from that point on?
I asked a lot of questions, even when I'm about to close. So, we've talked through that. How do you feel about that? Okay. Can you see how this might work for you in the future? Because one of the things I do when I ask questions at the very beginning is I ask future-based questions. What are the biggest challenges you're going to face right now? But what kind of challenges do you see happening 6 months from now? What kind of problems do you see your industry experiencing in 3 to 6 months. Again, you're doing it to ask their expertise, but also future-based questions are always better than current ones. So when you get to that stage of the process, so everything we've discussed, the services I'm going to provide to help with your problem, how do you see that happening? What kind of result do you see based on what I've done? So you get them seeing a positive result in the future. You get them seeing how my service or product can help them. It's a very different conversation. You're getting them almost to visualize the outcome. And again, most people don't do this. What I'm talking about in terms of pausing when you mention a price, asking, how do you feel about it? Making sure when you book a meeting, it's in the diary first. You don't call somebody, you don't say, I'll call you back in a week. It has to be in the diary. I mean, our meeting today took place because it was in the diary. You
Yeah.
didn't say, oh, I'll call you back next week. No, no, you put it in the diary because things have to go in the diary. And all these things, are, I guess, are part of the process. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people making, I gave a talk online just before Christmas. And I was asked by one of the guests who kind of was in the Zoom, why are people so bad at sales? And I said, my brother-in-law spent 9 years becoming a doctor. My mother spent 3 years becoming a physiotherapist. My brother spent years becoming a teacher and then a tennis coach. They have spent years learning their products. And yet most people learn about sales by reading a few articles on LinkedIn, watching a few YouTube videos, maybe reading a book. They may have had a day of sales training 5 years ago, and that's it. If you want to become good at what you do, you've got to learn about sales every single day without exception. Even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes, it has to be daily. Again, consistent habits. You have to have a coach work with you. I have two coaches working with me. I have a sales coach who I've worked with all year, who has helped me grow my business. I also have a mindset coach I had back in January and February this year when I went through my divorce. That was horrible. I needed a mindset coach. And I had one in August, September, because I moved from England after 29 years to Northern Ireland to live with my parents. That's a huge decision. So again, you've got to be investing in yourself all the time. That's what successful people do. And all the new businesses I've seen failing, it's not because they were lazy, because most business owners aren't that lazy.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of infighting. Well, infighting will occur and differences of opinions will occur, of course, but it's because they do not generate enough sales. That's it. They don't understand how to sell. So you've got to learn how to sell, and you've got to get a coach, because without that, you're just going to lose. You really are.
And it's so important to have some sort of guidance and accountability as well. Like with sales, to make sure you're hitting your targets, you're talking about the right things, you're not making the same mistakes over and over again, and to have someone who's catching you along the way, right? And Niraj, I also want to be respectful of the time here as well. So I want to bring this back to our initial conversation, just about the pricing as well. When I've worked with some people, they will tell me there's only a certain amount they can charge, right? I always try to find one actionable thing they can do right now to start charging more. And the way I usually say is, if you're charging 2,000 right now, I want you to get on your next call and say 2,500. Just put it out there in the universe and see what happens. Oftentimes they land the client, right?
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you can think of that you would recommend people to really push out of their comfort zone in terms of pricing and charge higher? What can they do right now?
Well, for me, I would say you've got to start posting consistently
Mhm.
on the social media platforms of your choice 5 days a week. And you've got to start giving monstrous value. Every single person who likes your post, every single person who comments on your post, you have to engage with them. These are your followers, your supporters, your ambassadors, and your potential clients. Okay. You've got to be giving massive value to people. Always come from a place of service. Be giving out free ebooks, free PDFs, write articles for other people who are well known. Just give value. Most of what I do, even though I charge a lot for my coaching, so much of what I do for free. I'm just giving value, 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 price, value, 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 price. These things are so, so important. They really are. And really work on yourself and your mindset. Because when you come from a place of positivity rather than negativity, you can achieve so much. So the gratitude journal, the vision board, all these things kind of added together will make a massive, massive difference. They really will.
Perfect. And I think especially from a mindset perspective, it's not just a sales mindset you're trying to develop, it's an overall abundance mindset, right? And I feel many people, they're scared to charge higher because they think they'll lose the client, right? If I don't get this sale, I don't get that sale. And I think this is because you feel like there's a limited amount of people you have who are reaching out to you for your service, right? Maybe you can talk a little bit about this before we close today. The abundance mindset and the scarcity mindset. How do you transition between the two?
Well, it's very important to understand abundance and scarcity. So with scarcity, you have to get rid of all the bad habits you were taught quite often from your parents about, my father, when I grew up, said to me, all rich people are bad. So I grew up believing, well, in that case, I'm going to be broke for most of my adult life because rich people are bad. My father's told me time and time again, they're crooks. Unfortunately, that's what I learned from. So you got to get rid of all these bad habits that money is the root of all evil. All these cliches you've heard. I know a lot of people who are very wealthy, and many of them are the nicest, kindest people you will ever meet. Yes, some of them aren't very pleasant, but most of them are very nice. And in terms of abundance, you have to understand there is enough money to go around. There really is. There's no shortage of money on the planet. We're in a recession in the UK, and my coaching business is probably at an all-time high. First of all, recessions are taking place. I acknowledge them. It's not going to hold me back. And I know for a fact that there's money still out there. There's money circulating. Also, my beliefs towards money is something that I use to get other things in life. It's not something that I desperately need. I don't cling on to it. I don't have a scarcity mindset. I read books on money. T. Harv Eker's Secret of a Millionaire's Mind is one of the best books you can read. But I'm always reading. I've been on finance courses. I've been on courses on how to be a millionaire. Yep. A lot of these courses are run by con artists, I discovered. However, you take some of the good stuff. But I'm just going to double check because I have made notes. Always look at the glass half empty, not half full. Ask for help. So I always find that in coaching, you got to find people who are more successful than you and ask them for help. And if they have no time, what you say is very simple. How much do I have to pay you? And you'll find very quickly they will find the time. But don't go to people who are just successful. Make sure they're people whose values you share and respect. Delete negative money beliefs, like I've mentioned. Have more positive money beliefs. Money makes my life better. It makes the lives of others better as well because I'm paying my bills. I'm helping other people. I'm giving money to charity. I make the world better the more money I earn. And that's something people don't really think about things like that, There is enough money for everybody. Practice daily gratitude. Nothing ever gets done with a negative mindset. So no negative person discovered the moon. No negative person discovered the internet. Positive people, they go out and achieve things. And that's really important to understand. I also know we're running out of time, but I have this question from Frank Shestra in Houston, Texas, which I think is really important. Is it okay if we answer that? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. How do you charge what you're worth when you're new in business? And we've kind of covered that a lot. So I've said understanding your sales process and your clients' challenges. Don't rush into the sale, which a lot of people do, because when you rush into the sale and you get the price too quickly, it all becomes about the price. And a business deal should never be about the price. It should always be about the value. Listen, before you send a client proposal, make sure you're giving tons of value. Make sure you're giving testimonials. Before your follow-up meeting, make sure you've shared lots of valuable content, which I've said. And when it comes to negotiation, don't speak too fast. Don't look nervous, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Slow it down. Remain calm. Remind people of their needs and your value. And the price comes at the end. And when you mention the price, stop talking. It's okay to have a 5 to 10 seconds silence. It's absolutely fine. It's just often giving the client time to think about everything too.
Yeah, I think that itself could be a great clip. Everything you just said in the past 2 minutes, it listed all the top mistakes that I was making when I started out as a salesperson. If I had that 2-minute clip, don't do all these things, that would have made a huge difference. We've got a comment from Melissa as well. The book Secrets of the Millionaire Mind helps a lot with this mindset. I feel like for me, one major shift in my beliefs around money was to think about every dollar that your client gives you as appreciation. So if they're giving you $200 as opposed to $2,000, You want them to appreciate you more, therefore you will charge them higher because they appreciate the kind of value you deliver at 2000, right? And another thing I learned from Chris Doe, he's a business coach on YouTube. He says you don't want people reaching out to you because you're the cheap option, because you're the discount option, because you charge less. That way, they value you as a bargain, not as you as a high value service provider, which I think in the space I work in is career coaching, right? Where a lot of people get stuck in the resume writing, the cover letter writing, the $50, $100, $200 services that are one-off freelance services. They're not solving a big, ginormous problem for people that they can charge $2,000 for, right? So at least what I've learned is find a way to, like you said, deliver massive, massive value. And instead of catering to everyone with a small service, cater to a select few with a high value service. Is that something you'd agree with?
Oh, 100%. When I look back on the mistakes I made setting up my business at the beginning, I was so short term in my thinking. Because it's nice to get a quick win, but quick wins don't last very long. And now I have 40% less clients now than I
Yeah.
had almost 3 years ago. But I'm doing better now because I have high value clients who appreciate me.
Yeah.
Almost majority of my clients are with me long term. So they only pay me £250. So say 350 Canadian dollars or 300 American dollars a month. It's not much, but over a year, it's a lot, and that's what's important. It's over 6 months or it's over a year they invest in me. And sometimes when they have urgent stuff coming up or big presentations coming up, it's twice a month. They'll come back to me more because again, I'm giving them value and value and value. So always think long term.
Uh-huh.
Don't just think, how can I quickly win this for financial reasons? How am I going to help this client? How am I going to solve their problems? And you take that perspective, you're going to enjoy your work a lot more, and you're going to get paid a lot more in the future.
Perfect. I think that's a very good note to end this as well, Niraj. Is there anything else we haven't talked about? Anything else that we're missing?
No, I would say to everybody, I've been to Tony Robbins events, and he says, look, if you just listen to what I've said, you're only going to take home 20%. But if you write down what we've said, so please make notes on this and then take action, all of a sudden your learning is going to go from 20% to 75%. So please write notes, look back in those notes tomorrow, look back in those notes in a week's time, take action.
Mm-hmm.
Connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Niraj Kapur. Or just go to everybodyworksinsales.com, scroll to the homepage. There's a recommended reading list of books in sales, personal development, and autobiographies. You will learn so much from it. It's free advice. It's not, it doesn't pay to use my website, but just you'll learn so much from it. But please take action. That's the most important thing. Take notes, take action. Don't just go, that was interesting, and get on with your life. Please take action because you will see results much quicker than you could possibly imagine.
Well, Niraj, if people are watching this right now and kind of like you and I met, I saw you in a different podcast and I was like, I love this guy's attitude. I love his. I
Thank
think I
you.
was the only comment on that video as well. I just left a comment saying, I love this guy and how he's approaching sales. I want to talk to him. And then we kind of got connected that way. Suppose there's someone else watching this live stream. They're like, I love Niraj's attitude. I want to work with him. Who do you work with? What kind of services do you offer? And where's the best place to find that out?
It's so broad and varied. I mean, majority of people I work with are business owners with 5 members of staff or less. That probably is 90% of my business. And quite often the business owner will work with me to help out his staff at the beginning. But then after that, I tend to work with business owners one-to-one on their mindset and on their growth. So at the beginning, it's just with salespeople, but then eventually it kind of moves to the business owner. But 3 or 4 times a year, I work with Barclays, who are a big bank in England. Again, a lot of their staff just didn't want to pick up the phone. No, we are not salespeople. We will not pick the phone up. And so I have to do a coaching session about mindset, a coaching session about the phone, and then I did role plays in front of everybody to show it worked. Because again, you got to prove it works.
Yeah.
So Barclays delivering to Google in March and April, that was amazing. NatWest, Sainsbury's, so big retail, big corporations, but they're only once a quarter. That's not really my work. It's nice for my ego. It's nice to say that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's business owners with 5 members of staff or less. And if you want to connect with me, find me on LinkedIn, Niraj Kapur, or go to everybodyworksinsales.com and get the free resources and connect with me there.
If you can post a link of your book in the comments to this live stream as well, just so people can find it. And just a quick announcement as well: if you are looking for a way to increase your prices, I'm doing a full webinar on that. More instructions on that in the comments. We're talking about just a mindset piece and what the limiting beliefs people tend to have about raising their prices. Because I can tell you've heard just about every single one of them. Not a lot of them stick. Right? They're kind of the same across the board. Niraj, thank you so much for coming on today. I think this has been a very, very value-packed session. Anything you want to leave our audience with today before we conclude?
No, it's great. I mean, this is a great example of business whereby you saw a podcast I was on. You were very complimentary. I mean, who is this guy? I think Googled you. I saw your videos. That this guy's really good. Then I commented in some of your YouTube videos, and then on your LinkedIn post. I think I commented in your LinkedIn post 2 days ago. You commented in my post today. That's what business is about. It's about supporting each other, helping each other. And I have not asked you for a single thing, and you haven't asked me for a single thing. We're just helping each other out. And
Yeah.
for me, that's a great way of doing business. I love relationships like this.
Yeah.
So now I'm more than happy with this.
Yeah, there could be people who are like, wait, isn't Niraj your competitor? Why are you talking to your competitor? There are more than enough people in the world we can help together. It doesn't have to be me,
God, yeah.
person, right?
100%. There's more than enough business to go around. I mean, since lockdown, every man and his dog is a coach. I mean, literally, everybody's become a coach. That's the two magical things people have done: written bad books, which is what everybody seems to be doing right now, terrible books out there, and becoming a coach because they think it's easy. And so I know the competition is ferocious, but it doesn't bother me because I know for a fact they're not offering the value I'm offering. And all I'm doing is trying to focus on helping other people. Because again, I think it's Zig Ziglar said this: the more people you help, the less you have to sell, but also the more people you help, the better life is. That's just a fact. And so people are quite surprised how much time I spend supporting my friends, promoting their courses. I don't even have an affiliate link. I just do it because I know it helps them. And that's a good place to always come from, a place of service and help. A lot of people at the beginning of business don't think about that at all. They're just thinking, how do I get a client? How do I get a client? You can't be that narrow-minded. You've got to think bigger.
Exactly, Niraj. And I think you could not have left this on a better note. Just be of service to other people. If you're watching this, everything we talked about, we will link it below in the description and in the comments. Niraj, thank you so much for coming on board. And I will probably have you in the future as well if you're open to it.
That sounds absolutely grand, Yasir. Fantastic speaking to you.
All right. Take care, Niraj.
Bye-bye.